This video is designed to give you an induction on how to work close to barrier systems. So the first question is, what do barriers do? Temporary road safety barrier systems are designed to absorb crash energy. If a vehicle leaves its path for any reason, a barrier is designed to absorb and redirect the vehicle so the occupants of the vehicle remain unharmed. This is their primary purpose. We place barriers so that road users are protected from hazards that we introduce to the road corridor, like excavations or heavy plant or obstacles that would cause serious harm. Barrier systems are crash tested and approved. All systems that are used must be approved for use on New Zealand's roads by Waka Kotahi, the New Zealand Transport Agency. Barriers are designed to absorb impact. And they do this using 3 different methods. The first is ribbon strength. They need to meet a minimum length so that any impact is spread across multiple barrier units. They must have a long enough string so that they work properly. This also means that towards the ends of the barrier, they won't perform as well. There isn't the ribbon strength at each end to absorb energy enough. Some systems, like water-filled barriers, concrete barriers, use mass or weight to absorb energy. They are heavy, and their friction with the road surface then means they have absorption power. If they aren't filled with water or have minimal surface contact, they won't perform as required. Many steel barrier systems use pins into the ground as their way of absorbing energy. Pins are placed along the barrier to generate strength. If pins are not present or incorrectly spaced, this will result in the barrier not performing. There are a few key roles that relate to barrier systems when they're used on site. Firstly, the system designer. Barrier systems on work sites must be designed by a qualified person. This person must have done the Waka Kotahi workshop and passed the assessment. They would provide a design for the barrier system, and this sits separate to the TMP. We also have the system installer. A qualified person must be in charge of the installation of the barrier system. They must ensure it is installed as per the provided design and as per the manufacturer's requirements. The installer must have done the required Waka Kotahi workshop and passed the assessment. And we also must have qualified inspections. So a qualified inspector must continue to ensure the barrier system remains in good condition and installed correctly and all safety zones remain clear. The inspector can be someone already on site, provided they've done the required Waka Kotahi workshop and passed the assessment. Once installed, barriers must be inspected by a qualified inspector at least every 2 working days. And lastly, we have the STMS. They also play an important role on site. If qualified to interact with the barrier system, the STMS can undertake the required inspections of the system and even be in charge of the installation. If not, the STMS still has a responsibility to report potential faults or problems and keep the safety zones clear. The STMS should receive appropriate handover from the installer to make sure that they're familiar with the system and its needs, even if they aren't personally qualified to execute the regular inspections. The STMS in charge must have a copy of the barrier design statement and the diagrams on site. And they should also have a copy of the completed checklists from the most recent inspection to make sure it's clear that the system remains in a fit-for-purpose state. All barrier systems installed in a temporary setting on site have some form of deflection zone. That deflection zone is essentially the space that will be taken up when that barrier is struck by a vehicle and needs to absorb its impact. That deflection zone takes the place of our lateral safety zone, which we might find on site using cones, but instead of using a 1 meter distance, we use whatever the deflection of that particular barrier system is. It can range from anything from 100 millimeters up to 5.7 meters, depending on what the barrier system is and the speed of the road beside it. If in any doubt, check the on-site barrier statement or check with the STMS. It should be part of the induction information provided to every person who works on that site. That deflection zone should be marked using either delineation, cones, cone bars, or some form of paint or dazzle to make sure that no plant, materials or personnel enter that deflection zone at any time. That zone must be kept clear to ensure that if the barrier is impacted by a vehicle, that it can move safely and absorb that impact without causing harm to anyone else. At the end of every barrier system, we should find a crash cushion. The crash cushion is designed to protect the blunt end of the barrier system and make sure that any vehicle occupants that came into contact with that end are not harmed in any way. The crash cushion itself is designed to absorb that impact by crushing and concertinaing in towards the end. However, if a vehicle hits the crash cushion on any angle, it's designed to gate and open. That means that this area where I'm standing is all called the clear zone. And the clear zone for every single barrier system, regardless of what crash cushion is used, we have a 6 meter by 22 meter clear zone behind that cushion. This is to be treated like a longitudinal safety zone, clear of all plant, materials and personnel. When it comes to safely accessing sites with barrier systems, be sure to adhere to the other safe entry and exit procedures for work sites. But additionally, barrier systems present further risks to be aware of. Barriers block the view, so ensure there are appropriate controls in place so that the space behind the barrier system is clear before attempting to move into that space. Remember the deflection and clear zones. You must stay clear of the deflection space when you've finished your site access maneuver, and ensure you're far enough forward of the crash cushion, more than 22 meters, to make sure you're clear of the clear zone. Remember, barriers are primarily designed to protect road users from hazards. If you park plant or machinery in compromised positions, this may put road users at risk. For example, if you're operating a large excavator, generally the road user is more at risk of being harmed from striking that excavator than you are from that accident. The barrier system is there to protect them from your hazards. It's important to consider also what to do if there's an accident on site with the barrier system. If a vehicle strikes a barrier system, it is designed to move and absorb that impact. They are tested to absorb that impact, and there is some evidence of what might happen. But there are lots of variables, and it is not always guaranteed that things will be fully contained. If vehicles hit barriers at high speeds or high angles, or the vehicle is very large, then the results may be much worse than what's happened when the barrier was crash tested. In the event of an accident, take cover quickly. Even if a vehicle is contained, debris and objects can fly significant distances, such as headlights or wing mirrors. These objects have been found hundreds of meters from crashes. If a vehicle has crashed, it may be blocking other traffic and in a compromised position. Be careful about approaching any scene to make sure you and others are safe first. One accident can cause another one if visibility is poor or other drivers are not paying attention. Don't rush to help. Make good decisions on your own safety first. Barrier systems, particularly pinned barriers, do have interaction with the road surface. After a crash, pins can destabilize the ground, particularly if excavations are close by, and cause a more hazardous environment in other ways. Be careful of your surroundings. If an accident has occurred, it's almost certain that the barrier system has now been compromised. You may not be able to immediately return to normal. The system must be checked for damage, and additional controls may be required in the short term to ensure that the immediate additional risk is managed while the barrier system is returned to a compliant state. Generally, barrier systems will make environments safer. But remember, they bring with them additional considerations and protocols that need to be adhered to. If you have any questions, speak to the STMS, who will ensure that the inspection and installation requirements are met at all times. Ensure you are absolutely clear as to where the safety or no-go zones are around barriers at all times. Make good decisions and take your time. If in doubt, ask.